And joining us tonight to weigh in is political analyst Robin Garcia. Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here finally to meet everyone.
So, what's your immediate takeaway from the speech?
I have a lot of thoughts. Actually, I thought that it was impactful. I thought it was quite timely. There are some issues that, currently is part of the news cycle that he did talk about. For example, the typhoon. I think that was quite clever. PhilHealth issue was still quite recent, and that he did address that squarely. And I thought that overall the SONA focused on policy and programs. It focused on economics. But he tried to mix that with sort of this social and human aspect to economics, which is actually quite difficult. If you talk about economics and industry, it could be highfalutin. You could talk about numbers and things like that. But he tried his best to humanize it, to make it more social, to make it more grounded.
I think the president has been trying to demonstrate empathy with people. But then, well, it's one thing to express empathy, but it really is up to him to make it easier for all of us, right?
Before you answer, Robin, I'll just add on to what Seth said, because
right.
A lot of pundits have said this is quite populist, this fourth SONA, compared to the first three. First of all, he spoke in Filipino, not English, as his norm. He's not, of course, the first to do that, but first for PBBM. Do you agree with that? And what do you think? Was that a good move?
I mean, in some respects, it's populist, but I don't think it's squarely a populist speech. He did talk about people. That doesn't make it populist right away. When you say populism, it would require the president painting an enemy and that he is the savior. In fact, that was absent in the speech. Last year, he talked about China. He talked about pogos. And then he did talk about businessmen. But I think this year he focused on domestic social issues instead of foreign policy issues. So I mean there are elements of populism, but I don't think it's completely populist. But it's absolutely a good move to make it a people-centered speech, because that's what he lacks. And I think the approval ratings that he's had the past few months reflect that, right? So. And he did say that, address the issue of the elections, that it is a referendum on his ability to, to be more responsive to people's needs, and that's what he did. I think that's what he was trying to do this afternoon.
What about Mrs.?
A lot. I think he could have improved. So while he was trying to be more social, more human, some SONAs, if you remember, they actually talk about actual people. They even asked those people to stand in the gallery, right? So that was not there, right? So I think that he could have improved in that sense. Like people who were actual beneficiaries of programs that he erected, right? The departments, that was not there. Second, he did not talk about Bagong Pilipinas. And I think
Yes, I wanted to point that out. You said,
the other
should it be just a logo and and a jingle?
A jingle and even a panunumpa, right? It's a logo that you put in the paper. But, I was waiting for sort of that explanation for how do you define the parameters of Bagong Pilipinas? What does it really mean, right?
Well, he did say in the ending.
Do you think...
Bagong Pilipino tayo.
It's just a twist. But if we're going to compare, right? So I think the last admin, they were super strict about their 10-point socioeconomic agenda, to the point I still remember it up to now. And it would seem to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this admin doesn't have that kind of backbone or framework that they will...
Or like plan.
That
You're absolutely right. I think Bagong Pilipinas is still a very abstract and very far sort of political slogan and concept that has yet to be brought down. So this year, if he's going to focus on social welfare, giving free stuff in terms of health, he has to say that, right? So he has to say that health is one of his, the cornerstone of Bagong Pilipinas. And he has to define why it's new and what is old, right? So things like that, right? So he has to make us imagine, build a narrative.
And also so that we can measure his performance against the plan.
Against what he said, correct.
Although 5-year Philippine development plan isn't there.
There's always a Philippine development plan, right?
Yeah.
But
By
again,
the NEDA.
I hate to do this and compare to the last admin, but the
No,
last
this admin.
Okay, because the previous admins, they would have multi-sectoral, stakeholder, like 2-day conferences on PDP.
Correct. And I think what's absent also this year is that he never talked about any solid legislation. Like no RA
Well,
like this or
the
no
budget.
House bill except for
but-
that.
But the budget, let's...
Usually they talk about numbers, they talk
Yeah.
about actual legislation. And, SONA, you need to talk to, the audiences are both the legislators and the people. But actually he was talking to the people instead of legislators and telling them, okay, these are my legislative priorities.
Well, he said, mahiya naman kayo.
Yes, that's true. But that was a more general sort of statement. But yeah.
When he was talking about water, and the camera focused on Cynthia Villar, or was it Camille Villar?
It was Camille.
Camille. What did you make of that?
You know what? I think this is a very political. I think we're getting into the more political stuff. I think obviously the Villars are now not squarely in the Duterte camp, but they've traversed the Duterte camp already. They've endorsed Sara Duterte endorsed Camille Villar and things like that, right? So we've seen that unfold in the last few months, and so I think it's beginning to look like the President Marcos is sort of drawing the line between himself, the regime, his administration, and the Villars who remain
Camera cut
powerful.
away. Couldn't he have mentioned them?
Baka sinadya yun.
Yung prime water was already mentioned by
Some legislators, correct.
and Attorney Claire Castro has during the campaign period. So
And even yung may Lua report na, nasa table na raw ni Presidente, but we haven't heard the follow-up for that.
or apparently the Siquijor
power
power plant is also owned by a company of the Villars.
Yeah, so the Villars remain to be, very, very popular. They're still at the head of the NP, Nacionalista Party, which is one of the oldest, most influential parties. And so you see that sort of business elites and the political alignments in play, especially with the Villars.
I wanted to get your thoughts and circling back to what he said about the 2026 GAA or budget, where he said he kind of threatened with reenactment, right?
Yeah.
Personally, I wanted to hear something about open
Yeah.
BICAM since we've been talking about
Yeah.
this nonstop, and some legislators have said, do you think it would be a good idea, low-hanging fruit, to just say, look,
Yeah.
that's my priority legislation?
I actually kind of felt that this speech was, it was a very paternalistic speech in the sense that he was giving free stuff. He was also exerting the power. Yeah, free stuff, like health,
Everyone likes free
for
stuff.
heart, for cancer, for dialysis, things like that.
et cetera, yeah.
So, but that's
Pero-
part of a bigger goal, I think, for him, which is to exert the power of the government, the power of the state. And I think that was one of the impactful moments in the speech, in fact. But that's also cast the backdrop that he's being accused of being a lame duck president. Na wala naman parang he's just waiting to be for the next 2028 election. He's just riding along and just cruise and chill, right? But this speech, he was trying to send a message that I'm still here. The government is still here. I'm still leading the government, and there are things that I want to get done. So he's putting his name back in sort of the issue of governance and politics. So I think that's what I got from what he was trying to do. And specifically for the budget, there's this sort of perception that he was hands off in terms of budget.
Just letting
the legislators, sort of figure it out. I think he's trying to micromanage that part of the governance process, and he made it a cornerstone of his administration. We'll see if there will be improvements in the budget in 2026.
That's a long list of free stuff he promised. Huh?
It was like 30 minutes of free stuff, like being
Magkano
Correct,
yun?
in health.
Diba? How much is that?
That's
Going
a lot.
to,
That's a lot.
he has to fund all that.
Yeah, I'm also wondering actually how he will fund that. He said that GDP is good. That reflects the earnings of the government. If it's not corrupted, then we'll have something to spend. But I hope he addresses corruption really, so that he will have more public spending in social welfare.
So you think he connected with the Filipino
I think he did connect.
public?
I think it was quite impactful. Last year was impactful, but he was speaking to more political issues. Right now, it's more people-centered.
Do you think that was conscious? Because politics right now has gotten, it's on a whole new level, right? We didn't hear anything about Rodrigo Duterte and the ICC. We didn't hear about the West Philippine Sea even, which people like, he polled well on that. And then PGOs, online gambling, impeachment, nothing.
Yeah, there's certain things that you didn't discuss. Actually, I was waiting for the West Philippine Sea. It's one of my favorite topics. Pero baka sayad na kasi sinabi na niya nung first, second, and third SONA. Parang
bakit sayad
baka
na
ayaw
yun?
niyang gamitin niya. Well, siguro to
and
them.
he's supported there, right? By the Populist.
Or let's say, ano na lang, I don't know.
But did you notice, he turned a bit emotional when he was talking about the good traits of the Filipino. Parang his voice caught a little bit, or was that just my imagination?
I'm not sure because
okay.
I don't know. I thought he was, wala siyang water. I was very conscious about that. Medyo mahaba yun.
So parang naubusan na lang siguro kasi ending na kasi parang when he was praising, what's good about the Filipino, di ba?
I mean, for me, he usually is very good when he's reading speeches, and I'm assuming he's reading them. How would you say he translated, and did you notice any different nuances? Like, I noticed darker lighting, of course, the Filipino language.
Well, I mean, there were some bumps in the speech, right? I mean, he could have enunciated some words better. But I think overall he connected when majority of the speech was in Tagalog. No? So maganda naman yung tone. Yung structure, actually, palagay ko maganda rin yung pagka-structure.
Madali mag-notes.
Parang conversation. Medyo,
Oo, di ba?
Easy.
Parang, tsaka organized siya.
Hindi yung malalim na hindi mo maintindihan.
Highfalutin, puro
yung
terms.
mga Tagalog words, Filipino words rather. But he's also skipped this. There was another important omission, or, well, you tell me if it's important or not. He didn't report on his U.S. trip, on, the tariffs, our number one market.
And so actually, that's why I think that he was trying to get away from this whole anti-China narrative. Because people would then say, yung kaibigan mo naman, hindi ka binigyan ng maraming concessions eh. So actually, yung foreign policy mo, wala ka masyadong achievements. And people were expecting that a few days ago,
That's why he
right?
skipped that.
I think that's why he skipped that, because there was nothing to report in terms of foreign policy, in fact.
He just said, parang we remain independent. Yun lang yung sinabi niya di ba? And do you think, though, that toning down the anti-China rhetoric was a cue from President Trump? Because in their meeting, like that kind of screamed at me.
I think he was trying to say that he's also not happy with what he got from the United States in terms of tariffs. Because tariffs is a big thing, especially for our budding economic success.
But we're trying to form a coalition of nations supporting us in asserting our sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea. I mean, there's Japan, there's the EU, there's France, Australia.
Yeah, you remember in his first SONA.
That's not but something significant to...
Mukhang bumalik siya dun sa first SONA niya na enemy to none and friends to all. And then nung second and third, parang mas naging defined yung anti-China stance niya. Parang ngayon bumalik siya doon. So it probably is because of the U.S. trip and the lack of... It was the first meeting. It's quite significant. But he did talk about the ASEAN chairmanship, although he did not outline what he would want to do. We'll see if the West Philippine Sea will be part of
the agenda. And he did say the Philippines is now respected and recognized internationally, but he didn't elaborate.
Correct. I was also wondering what that is.
Yeah.
Ano kaya yung thought process? Do you think by avoiding these things that we were all very eagerly awaiting, just serve to call more attention to the lack of anything on these specific topics?
Yeah, maybe he wants to really carve out more space for more social stuff, more domestic stuff instead of foreign policy stuff. Kasi malayo pa rin kasi talaga yan. It's not an election issue as much as we want it to be. And
hindi siya gut issue.
Hindi siya gut issue, correct. No? So if at the beginning of his speech he's saying that narinig ko yung parang yung gusto niyong sabihin dun sa resulta ng election. That's why he's responding directly to the results of the elections, which is mainly
It was almost
economics.
like a conversational speech, ano?
Yeah.
Very easy to digest.
So for a midterm SONA,
Grading na ba?
grade. Professor ka naman, di ba?
Yes, I'm a,
So,
I'm a faculty at the
anong-
Ateneo School of Government.
Anong grade?
Okay, 1 to 10.
Parang ano pa kung 10 pinakamataas, parang nasa 6.5 pa siya.
Barely passing.
That's low! Akala ko ba you liked it?
I'm very generous. I'm a tough prof. Kaya that's why.
Mag-ingat na yung mga estudyante.
Parang medyo pasang-awa ata yung
Oo, 6.57, ganyan.
7 yung pasang-awa sa amin dati, di ba? So barely
Yeah.
passing.
Kasi yung expectation is dapat ando ka na sa legacy building What is your legacy? Like,
Parang wala
I'm
pa
not
siyang
really sure.
pwedeng maipagmamalaki.
He's reactive to the call of the times, which is not bad. But what else are you going to do? What defines? Why are you strong? Why are you bold? Right? Why is your administration not what your opponents are saying, which is that you're a lame duck, you're weak, diba? So
Underwhelming.
correct. That's actually the right term.
Well-intentioned, but underwhelming.
Okay, and a lot has been said. Last question from Robin. A lot has been said about the president's communication skills, or even this admin's communication skills, or lack thereof. How would you say this SONA shifts that, if at all?
I don't think there was a big improvement, to be honest. They're institutionally, they're scrambling for the right person to put as the PCO or as their communications chief.
They have a new one.
Yeah, I mean, but it does the fact that they've been changing. It does reflect that they have a shallow bench, meaning that they don't have a lot of people they could trust who could execute very well. There are a lot of very good journalists actually who might be able to do a better job, but I don't know why they haven't spoken to them, or maybe those journalists did not accept the invitation. Who knows, right? But I think they could do a better job in communicating, in framing and shaping narratives and perceptions about the strength of the administration. And it's not just about, talking directly to the Dutertes, right, and trying to rebut them. That's not the task of the palace, right? I mean, in that sense, baka yun kaya ng tapatan nung spokesperson, but there are other things that you need to think about, and that's basically your developmental legacy, and the strength of your political leadership, which I think he could have also done in this SONA, but he did not, and that's why he had to talk about Bagong Pilipinas. That was, to me, an opportunity that maybe he could take in the next State of the Nation address.
Okay. Well, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
to the big
Thank you
story.
very much.
That was political analyst Robin Garcia.